Hello and welcome to iBluairJgR Gaming for Comedy. Today we are going to watch a 1 vs 1 match from the perspective of the Orks. Before we dive into the match, let's go over our loadout. Our first elite is the Storm Boys. They're a 2-point elite and the doctrine we'll be using is Suicide Bombers. This allows us to launch a Suicide Bomber out of our trucks when they have units loaded inside. Even though the Storm Boys are an early game elite, the doctrine they provide will give us an advantage throughout the entire match. Next up we have the Commando. He's a 3-point elite and the doctrine he has equipped is Rocket Jump. This gives tank busters and killer cans the ability to rocket jump. It sends them to a target position and stealths them on arrival. This doctrine is a lot more situational, but it gives some of our more vulnerable units a means of escape and survival. Finally, the Mega Knobs are a 6-point elite and the doctrine they have equipped is Better Shout. This enhances the boys' shout ability. They now gain a shield while they're channeling. Although the Mega Knobs are a mid to late game elite, they're going to provide us with a benefit throughout the entire match. Next, our 3 doctrines are Rocket Barrage, Tons of Bombs, and Long Range Rocket. Rocket Barrage allows tank busters to fire a rocket barrage at target position for damage in a circle. Long Range Rocket allows killer cans to fire a long range rocket that deals damage to the first target it hits and leaves behind a small area of effect slow. It's pretty straightforward. Finally, Tons of Bombs allow Shooter Boys to periodically throw stick bombs at their targets if they have looted scrap. Alright, now let's get into the match. And here we go. We are jumping right into it. We're sending our Gretchens off to the bottom point in the center of the map, starting construction on 3 boys as well as a second mob of Gretchens. Map control is always important in real-time strategy games, so if we can gain a foothold early on, then we'll be in a great position. Hopefully we don't run into too much resistance, but I don't imagine we will because Space Marines, they're a bit slow to build up, right? Their units cost a lot more than the Ork units, especially compared to the boys. The tactical Marines cost an arm and a leg, so we're gonna have an advantage in terms of sheer numbers for a little while. Starting to send our boys over to the area. We stealthed our Gretchen just to get an idea of what was going on without having to reveal ourselves. If there was a tactical Marine in the area, I would have left him invisible just in case. And we are starting construction on a Waaagghhh tower as well for some protection and access to that Waaagghhh channeling ability. And on a different note, though, the Orks are hands down my favorite faction in the game, and I don't think that's ever going to change. But the Waaagghhh tower is really interesting because this is what the Orks use to advance in tech levels, but it is also a form of defense in the field. So we can turn this little area into an impenetrable fortress if we choose to, or we can spread out our Waaagghhh towers around the map so that we have access to that very powerful channeled buff when we need it, wherever we need it. So it's going to be interesting to see how this plays out. And we're starting construction on a listening post as well, making sure that this area remains defended, and we're already upgrading one of the power nodes so that we get a small increase to our resource income. So selecting a bunch of boys and channeling that shout ability. You can see the shield popping up, but we don't necessarily need that effect at the moment because we're not being attacked. But now the question is, are we going to go for the shield generator? Are we going to try and get some damage out on that? Or are we, from the looks of things, we're going for a power node. So we're going to try and harass some of the resources for the Space Marines. And that's always an interesting decision because we could get a decent amount of damage out on that shield generator, but they would be able to counter. If we started attacking that thing, you can guarantee the Space Marines are going to say, drop a pod on our heads, and then we're going to take a decent amount of damage. But that resource node, there wasn't anything upgraded there, so it's not going to warrant such an aggressive response, such an all-in defensive play. So what's interesting here, though, is we've sort of shown our hand. We've sort of given away that we have the majority of our forces diverted to the bottom of the map, which is leaving our top shield generator very susceptible to attack. And I'm sort of catching wind of that and sending a Gretchen inside to activate the shield for the generator, just in case if somebody does come to try and blow it up, it'll have a bit of extra defense, giving us time to run up there and defend it as necessary. We're off to a bit of a slow start, though. Not too much action. We haven't seen any of the line units for the enemy team yet. Just, coming into contact with the servitor at the bottom. No, nothing too exciting. We're starting construction on our second Waaagghhh tower, which is going to unlock a couple new pieces of tech for us. But it is also, since we're building it at the sort of top portion of the map, we now have access to a Waaagghhh over a much greater area. We've got the bottom half covered, so if anything happens down there, we can start screaming, start that music, and get it popping. If something happens at the top, we can do the same thing. And another piece of scrap is going to fall from the sky, and we're going to make another pair of odd boys. So whenever the boys loot a piece of scrap, they get increased health, making them very, very deadly in the early game. The melee units are... they're a pain in the ass to deal with, and we're using our stealth Gretchens to gain a bit of extra map awareness. You can just kind of sneak them around, just scope out what's going on, and it's a low risk thing. Even if a Gretchen dies, they only cost 50 requisition, so fuck them, right? No, that's a little bit mean, but every army's got to have a sacrificial lamb, and for the Orks, it is the Gretchen mob. So we just uncovered a group of 2 tactical marines and a listening post, so we're going to have to be careful about going into that center area. But also, it may be a good idea for us to try and take that out at some point, because they are generating extra elite points, which means they will have an advantage as time goes on. And we've channeled both of our Waaagghhh towers at the same time, but we're only getting the benefit from this one at the top. But this is creating a confusing effect for the enemy, because they're getting those pings on the map from 2 different spots, so they don't know exactly where the attack is going to come from. They just have to wait and say, all right, I just got to, wherever it comes, that's where I got to respond. So I can't preemptively guess what's going to happen. So we are running to that top node. We've got our shields up. We've got our Waaagghhh buff active. And we've got our shout buff as well. So we're going to be able to do a significant amount of damage. The shields are going to go down before they really mitigate too much. And I'm trying to keep my boys spread out decently well, even though they're melee units, because if a drop pod comes down, it'll stun all of them. And that's no good. Or knock them down, rather. I shouldn't say stun. And here we go. We're seeing something falling down over there. I'm not sure what that is. That is the standard from the Space Marines. But fortunately for me, I'm not considering fighting, especially while they have that buff up, so I'm just going to pull my units back and not have to worry about anything. So we screwed them out of 200 requisition by taking down that listening post, and we also wasted their special ability, so that was a good exchange for us. And now we do have a group of looter boys in addition to the storm boys, and we're sending them over to the shield generator, and we're upgrading our power node as well. So we're getting a lot of power so we can advance to those tech levels efficiently. But unfortunately, the Space Marines have made a very intelligent play here. They've kept a servitor garrisoned inside the shield generator, so the only way I'll be able to damage it is by investing into it. I could have sent my storm boys in, but they would have been able to respond if I had, really tried to push for it. And as you can see, Kill Team Iron Maw as well as some tactical marines are taking out the sacrificial Gretchen, and they would have, been able to stop the storm boys and stop the looter boys from doing their work on the shield generator. But now, since the Gretchen has been destroyed, we no longer have vision over the center area of the map, so I don't know for sure if Kill Team Iron Maw is coming for me, if they're trying to get some revenge, or what the deal is. Gonna put down a pile of guns, which is the upgrade building for the Orks. But yeah, at this point, we've lost a decent amount of vision, so we're not entirely sure how to respond. We've put our storm boys inside the truck, so that means if we do get attacked down at the bottom, we'll be able to use a lot of crowd control, and our looter boys will be able to rain some death at whoever comes to us. And I have diverted my boys back to the bottom, but it doesn't seem like anything's coming. But we're going to check it out. We're going to scope out what's going on, Just because we don't have vision doesn't mean we can't grab our nuts and say, you know what, we ain't scared. So, I mean, maybe that's a little bit graphic, but who cares, right? I had a friend in college once. His motto for everything in life was sometimes you got to put it on the table. And when he says it, he means his balls. And that means sometimes you got to go big or go home. And we have made our first real engagement. Kill Team Iron Maw going to get stunned up by the ejection of the Storm Boys from the truck, the suicide bomber, and then subsequently the actual Storm Boys are going to come out. And Kill Team Iron Maw is completely stuck. They're going to go down without much of a fight. So now we can really press this advantage. The Devastator Marines doing a good job of damaging us while they're far away, but these Storm Boys are going to jump in and put a stop to that immediately, getting them tied up in melee range. And we're doing a great job of keeping our truck and keeping our Looter Boys in a safe position, keeping them out of the main fray, because that's what you want to do with long-range units. You want to make sure that they are out of harm's way, and that Devastator Marine is going to get suicide bombed, but he's going to hold on for dear life, and he's going to survive. And just a little tip for anybody that doesn't know about it, in the UI you can actually tab around to different buildings and produce buildings without actually going to where that building is on the map, and that's very helpful. So we do see, though, that the Space Marines are finally starting to invest and finally starting to come in. We're activating that shout to gain the shield, putting another group of boys inside the truck and sending them out to the front lines. They don't have a lot of health remaining, but they are going to start channeling shout, which is giving them access to a shield. This is a very big situation going on, a big engage, and we could come out on top if we continue to micromanage well. We're using that truck reinforce as well. I didn't even notice that I had access to it. The pile of guns was definitely a good idea, and it is giving us a big advantage in this encounter. And from the looks of things, the Space Marines are having to retreat, so we're coming out on top. We've definitely won the exchange. We took a lot of damage, and I think we may have lost, maybe, nah, we didn't lose anything actually, so yeah, we came out on top of that one. Shit. So far, so good, man. And we're not seeing a lot of Assault Marines, though, which is definitely part of why we're not taking casualties. They're not invincible by any means, but they are an incredibly powerful unit. They would have been able to dash back and deal with the Looter Boys that I had raining death from the back lines, but that would have just meant I would have had to divert the Storm Boys to different areas and crowd control them back, get them stuck in positions where they don't want to be. So just you got to remember, you know, some things are overpowered, some things need a little bit of tuning, but there's always a way to put a stop to even the most powerful enemy units. And it looks like the Commando's coming out, and we're also channeling the Waaagghhh. So after winning that encounter, I'm looking to make a big investment here and a big push, using the Commando to put down a trap just in case the enemies decide to flank us. So here we go. The Waaagghhh is active, and we're going big or going home. We've got 3 groups of boys, 1 Looter Boy, and that truck as well, so we can reinforce our guys on the go if we need to. But we see already Space Marines are calling something down. They drop down the standard, so that means they're going to get buffed up if we can't do anything about this, and I don't think we're going to want to stay in this situation. We're channeling our shout just so we can get a little bit of a shield before we start retreating. Kill Team Iron Maw coming back down as well. This was definitely not the right decision. We didn't kill nearly enough of their units to invest so heavily into this attack, so we're gonna have to pull back and regroup. And at this point we are worse for wear because we don't have a lot of defenses available to us. We're just gonna have to rely on superior positioning and micromanagement of our units to get out of this. We do still have access to the Storm Boys and those suicide bombers, and from the truck as well, keeping them crowd controlled as best as possible, and then finally ejecting a group of, oh no, that was the Commando inside the truck, so he's gonna come out and just discourage the Space Marines from continuing to push forward. They may have been able to do some pretty big damage had they committed, but it's risk and reward. You've always got to wonder, is this the right situation for me to push forward, or should I be a little bit more careful? And my opponent is choosing the more careful route here. You know, I can already kind of feel people talking smack about the Space Marine player on the other end of the screen here, and I got to be perfectly honest, he's doing a good job, and I would have most likely retreated in that situation as well. The Commando is a devastating unit. He does big area of effect damage, and his crowd control is ridiculous. The same goes for the truck, and the same goes for the Storm Boys. So if he committed to that situation, you know, he would have either taken a lot of damage or lost a considerable amount of units, and I don't think he would have been able to push through and really do too much damage to our node because we have that listening post and that Waaagghhh tower. So all in all, I'm gonna have to say he made the right choice in pulling back. So we're using the commando to put down another stunning trap just to give us a bit of preemptive warning if the enemies decide to come through, and that crowd control is always nice. We have a very CC intense build here. We've got a lot of access to ways to completely immobilize the enemy. And something interesting you'll note is that we've only upgraded a single power node. We've only got that node in the bottom center of the map doing anything for us, and besides that, we haven't even built a single requisition generator yet, so we're still going with very base level resources, and we're holding our own fairly well. And we're keeping the pressure on as well, and that's what's giving us an advantage here. We're keeping the Space Marines always in a point where they have to go back and reinforce, and that's a good place to be. Using our Gretchen again to scout out the area. This one is a lot more fortunate than his companion. He's not gonna get completely mauled on by a group of big guys in big suits of armor. So hopefully, I wonder how long he'll last. I wonder if that Gretchen there at the top of the map will ever get killed. Place your bets, people. Let's find out. But we are choosing to put another Waaagghhh tower down, and we're sending the commando in to set up a stunning trap. So from the looks of things, we're preparing for a big assault. So I think it's time to let's start playing some secret agent type music, because whenever the commando's on the field doing some sneaky shit near the enemy, I feel like some James Bond stuff is about to happen. We can only hope though that this plan goes as we plan it. But on that note, though, this is why I enjoy the Orks so much. They're supposed to be the dumb race. They're a bunch of idiots that don't really know what they're doing. But depending on how you set up your doctrines and your elites, you can have these really precise plans and these really in-depth strategies that you know, of course every faction has in-depth strategies and plans, but it's just so fun to do it with the Orks. I mean, you're launching guys out of a catapult that's fashioned in the back of a truck, and that's really silly. And it's also great at the same time. So let's see if this plan works out. We're starting off that Waaagghhh channel. We've got the traps laid. So if we have to retreat, the enemy will get stunned and we'll be able to turn the tables. Unfortunately, the commando going to get revealed ahead of time. So this is looking pretty ugly for us. We're going to have to start engaging before the channel is ready. And our group of knobs are getting slowed down by the Devastator Marines. But fortunately for us, the Waaagghhh tower is going to activate, give them a little bit of a boost. They're dodging just out of the way of the drop pod of the assault marines, and the knobs have made it into position to taunt a very large group of enemies, and our looter boys, our tank busters, are getting some big damage in from long range. We almost lost the truck there, which would have been pretty devastating. It's a decent investment, that truck. It's kind of expensive. The commando getting in the front lines, if we can maneuver him into the right position, he will be able to knock down enemies with his gun and also crowd control them. We got the CC off on the kill team Iron Maw, and they're going to get finished off very swiftly. The standard going to come out, but it's a little bit too late for that because a majority of the Marines are dead, if not all of them. Now there's one elite left on the field, so that's the only thing we really have to worry about, but we're just completely outnumbering them at this point, so there's not much they can do about it. So the plan worked. We didn't necessarily make use of these stunning traps to a very large degree, but all in all, we're coming out on top of this one. But our listening post is now getting attacked while we've diverted all of our forces to the top of the map. So the Space Marines, they still have a chance. If they can sort of get our power node destroyed, then they'll come out of this exchange pretty evenly. We did destroy one of their generators, but we're not going to really have time to get all of them unless I'm willing to make a big one-for-one trade. And it doesn't look like I'm willing to do that, so I'm rushing all of my units back down to the bottom of the map as quickly as possible. Our Waaagghhh tower is down. The listening post is going down as well. I'm setting up my looter boys, trying to defend with whatever I can. This is a pretty scary situation here. This could really turn the tide of a fight in a very negative way, because this is the only point that I have upgraded on the entire map. So that'll be devastating if we lose it. The Space Marines have started attacking the generators, but the truck is here. We're sending out that suicide bomber, and there are a ton of stunning traps on the floor. So if they, I don't even know how they avoided them, but either way, they're not going to avoid all these boys and all these orcs. They're gonna go down. So they're not gonna win the trade. They're gonna do some damage to us, but we lost a Waaagghhh tower, we lost the listening post. Nothing too crazy. So again, we've got a lot of back and forth action going on, but we're always coming out at the top of these trades, and that is allowing us to really, build up more significantly and advance through the tech levels so we can get more powerful units. We've already got our mech shop up and running, so we can start building death dreads and killer cans and things like that. So we're really in a much better spot. Our Waaagghhh tower in the center of the map is taking some damage, and I could do something about that. But to be perfectly honest, I don't know what's the better thing to do in this situation. While their few remaining forces are focusing on that Waaagghhh tower, I could go for a shield generator, which is what I'm doing. So, sure, they'll take out a couple of requisition and a little 75 requisition and 75 power, but we'll gain back a significantly larger amount by taking out this shield generator. So you got to do a little bit of math when you're on the field of battle and weigh the pros and cons. And furthermore, the Waaagghhh tower is not a main objective in this fight, right? Taking out a shield generator is. So if we can do that, we'll be on top. But the Space Marines are sending down a drop pod with a bunch of guns in it, so we're going to take some damage. They've also got Devastator Marines back near the spawn and some Assault Marines as well, so we're going to have to pull back. Our truck is very damaged up. Is it going to make it? No, we're finally going to lose the truck, and the units inside are going to have to start walking. That is very unfortunate because they're nearly dead. So we're not going to get the shield generator again, even though we keep winning these exchanges. The Space Marines have a lot of units in their reserve, so they're doing a good job of making sure that we can't get the objectives. But finally, our stunning trap is going to activate and buy us a little bit of extra time to reinforce our units and just get everything secure before we engage. And the commando coming in, knocking down those enemies with his shotgun and then stunning them up as well. So the crowd control is very real right now. We're sending in the knobs as well. We've got a new truck ready to go, and we are going to send a suicide bomber and the Storm Boys as well. So we're coming out on top again. Kill Team Iron Maw is just getting mauled on for the second time in this game. And the two Assault Marines are trying to chop up the Death Dread, but it's just not going to come out in their favor. I'm using a little bit of foresight. Another stunning trap going to activate, making sure that Kill Team Iron Maw cannot escape. But yeah, we won that exchange, and now we can go back for that shield generator and turn it into a big pile of scrap. So we're doing really well for ourselves, man. We're holding our own. We're keeping our cool. We're micromanaging very well. We're using commando again to cover our flanks just in case somebody comes around. We've got two Devastator Marines inside the shield generator, so they're giving it a shield, so we're not getting any damage on it just yet. But our knobs as well as our Storm Boys are going to go in, and they're going to take them out very quickly. So I can almost guarantee that the shield generator is finally going to fall, which is going to open up the next phase of the objectives, rather, I should say. And we're 20 minutes into the fight, or into the match rather, and we are just now producing our first requisition generators, which is really interesting, and it makes you appreciate how important micromanagement can be as opposed to just raw numbers. I mean, if we had more requisition generators, maybe we would have gotten out a couple more units, but at the same time, we didn't need it. And we're summoning our Mega Knobs to defend our shield generator. These Space Marines sent over some, what is it called? Some flyy death machines to destroy it. I can't remember what it's called. Land speeders. There we go. I got it. So they sent over some land speeders to try and harass our backlines, but the Mega Knobs are going to discourage them from doing that. And they went over to do some damage to the top node over there. I'm sure they were expecting there to be some generators up there, but there's nothing. I haven't done much upgrading. So that's definitely probably a bit of a surprise. And now we're using our Gretchens on the scrap piles to produce killer cans. That's something really interesting the Orks can do. They can turn piles of scrap into units. Depending on the size of the scrap pile, you can make bigger and more powerful units. And that's a really fun mechanic. At this point, though, we've been doing a great job for this entire match, so we're ahead. We have the ability to win at any time, but we have to be very intelligent about how we win. If we overcommit to anything, like if we send all of our units and just attack move towards the turrets or the towers, whatever you want to call them, then we could get caught out and we could get just completely rolled over, and that'll give the Space Marines a very big burst of momentum, and that's what we don't want to do. So we're being intelligent about this. We've got 3 kilocans out, and those things with their long-range rockets can actually siege the towers without being hit. So that's most likely what we're trying to do. So, you know, we're being very tactical about this, being very intelligent with the dumbest faction in the game. So yeah, now we just have to make sure everybody's reinforced, get everybody prepared for the final assault. And this is a little bit ridiculous. I'm going to call this a choke on the part of the enemy. He's captured the power node that's right next to my base, and then he's got the stones to say, you know what, I'm going to put some generators on it. That's just a little bit ridiculous, but maybe he's friends with that guy I knew in college. You know, sometimes you just got to put him on the table, and by it, in this case, sometimes you just got to put those generators out and hope you can get a little bit of extra power out of it. But unfortunately, it is not going to work that way. I'm definitely paying attention to the entire map. There's really nothing that he can do to catch me off guard at this point. And we finally started producing shooter boys this late in the game. We've had a doctrine for them the entire time, but we haven't really seen too much of it. But that's okay. That's the thing about doctrines. You don't necessarily have to use them. They're there as you're creating an optimal strategy for yourself, but you don't necessarily have to follow that strategy. Like we had the tank busters with a doctrine as well, but we haven't made much use of that either. So now the kilocans have finally made their way down to the bottom of the map, and our Gretchen at the top has revealed some enemy activity, but I don't think he's dying. So, you know, if you guys have made the bet that Gretchen at the top is going to die, so far, he's still alive and he's doing pretty well. As you can see, the kilocans have made their way to the bottom portion of the map, and we're activating the Waaagghhh tower at the top as a sort of fake out maneuver again, trying to get the Space Marines to divert some of their attention towards the top. We've got Commando down to protect the kilocans. He can CC or crowd control any units that come by, and those long range rockets are going to connect with the turret, and then we're going to pull back and just let that ability recharge so we can come in and do it again. It's just slowly, very slowly whittle it down. They don't do nearly as much damage as you imagine they do. It's a bit of annoying harass that if you let it continue on for a long enough time, you will lose the game that way. But if you just rush in with some assault marines, you can jump right on top of the kilocans and take them out very quickly. So the rockets are back and ready, so we're going to fire them in one more time. Boom. And because we're being left uncontested, we're able to do this. As soon as he sends some people in, we're gonna have to back off, and we're using those rockets to just get a little bit of harass on that bottom listening post, just trying to do as much damage as humanly possible. But really, that's the thing about Dawn of War 3 is if you leave things unchecked, if you leave a certain strategy unchecked, then that's when you feel the power of it, you feel the impact of it. But on a different note, though, the Space Marines are making a huge commitment here. They've had enough of this orc nonsense. They're tired of all the butt rock coming out of these towers, and they are trying to commit, but they're committing way too hard. You can see that the ultimate ability, the Rock Storm, is coming down, and it is doing a ridiculous amount of damage to their units, and they are not trying to move out of the way. They've called down their ultimate ability as well, but it's not going to do nearly as much at this point because my units are very well spread out, so we're not going to have to worry too much about that. And the rocks, they're going to come down and eliminate whatever was in that area. I didn't even catch a glimpse of what units it was. But at this point, there's no room for a comeback, especially after a tilted play of that level. There's just no... There's clearly a lot of frustration going on from my enemy. He's just had enough. He's throwing whatever punches he has left, and I commend him for that. The surrender vote not going to come out for a very long time. He could have surrendered at any point in this match, but he put in a very solid effort, and he genuinely... Let me tell you something. My sphincter was clenching up a couple times during this, all right? I was worried. On that note, though, we're going to wind down because, as you know, I don't foresee a massive comeback coming anytime soon. I imagine that all the Space Marines are dead, and they've given up, and you know, they're ready to throw in the towel at this point. The turret is down, and now we just have to, you know, get ready to push the final objective, the power core. You know, I'm still being cautious about this on the off chance that there are some Space Marines left, but me from the future, I'm coming in. I'm going to say that there's no Space Marines left. I'm being way too cautious. I mean, this isn't even ranked. Why am I trying so hard to win just like a perfect, flawless victory? It's out of control. But seriously, though, if you will notice, though, if you look at the minimap, we will see that there is a big circle of a revealed area, and that is from the Gretchen that we stationed there a long time ago. So if you did place a bet and say that Gretchen was going to get killed, then you have lost it at this point, unless a drop pod falls on his head right now. And there we go, the surrender vote gonna come out, and we are gonna walk away with the victory. So there you go, guys. At this point, I'm sure you already know the name of the game is Dawn of War 3. The name of the channel is iBluairJgR Gaming for Comedy. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time.